Welcome to a very special edition of Crypto Channel Direct, where we are in Paris at the Paris Blockchain Week, where we're going to be interviewing a lot of different guests and hearing the latest developments in blockchain. I'm Claire Brown, and welcome to Crypto Channel Direct, powered by Concordium. So I'm here with John Cheesman, who's head of FTX Access. And John, thank you for talking with us today at CCD. Can you tell me a little bit more about FTX Access?
Yeah, sure. So I've been at FTX for about a year now, running institutional sales. FTX Access is our official launch for our institutional product. We do advisory services, execution advisory. We're launching a really exciting research business that's going to touch macro, top-down, bottom-up crypto analysis, also some technical analysis, and then we may launch some. We launched one index product already. We have another one coming next week, and we hopefully will have a few more interesting and exciting ones coming in the next 6 to 12 months.
Brilliant, sounds very exciting. And so coming here to the Paris Blockchain Week, what do you hope to get out of this?
Well, so we recently just got licensed in Cyprus, which is a passportable license across Europe. And we're working on a few other acquisitions that I can't talk about right now. But certainly the European market is one that's becoming more open to us, and one that where you can only take you have to take things at a time, and it's time for us now to really be much more aggressive in Europe. This looks like a great conference already. It's actually, I think, the busiest conference I've ever been to.
Me too.
So, just hoping to, get our name out there with European institutional investors. But, one of the things about FTX is while I run institutional sales, we don't really offer a retail product and an institutional product. We like to treat all our users as equally as possible.
Which I love.
So FTX Access, it is, the research will be kind of aimed to cater to institutional clients, but it will be open and free for everyone.
So we've just been listening to Kjelstrøm, who's CTO of Concordium, talking about identity by design, and now I'm going to speak with Kåre one-on-one and just get the highlights of his talk. So Kåre, that was a really great talk about identity by design, but I wanted you to kind of summarize, what is identity by design?
Thank you, Claire. So first of all, identity by design is really us having built identification into the protocol layer of our blockchain. And the reason we're doing that is because, as you know, ID and fraud in that space is massive. Right? People are losing money, they're losing their identity, and they're basically being exposed in ways that are not great by other people posing as them. So something can be done, and that's what we're trying to achieve with Concordium.
Thinking there must have been a lot of challenges and finding a lot of solutions. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the challenges and solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing there, of course, is that you have to get an identity, and how do you do that? Well, the best thing we have is government-provided passports and identification documents. So we use those to issue a digital identity, which you can then control from your blockchain wallet, and you can decide what information do you want to solicit to businesses and other people. You don't have to tell them your birth date, for instance, if it's not necessary. If you only want to say you're older than 18, then you can do that using zero knowledge proofs.
And Kåre, where do you sort of see the future of identity?
So I think identity is huge, right? If we can help solve this space, well, we're in for a massive area. That is we're just currently looking at the basic identity, the government-issued identity, which is your name, your birth date, maybe the place where you were born. But there are other identities, right? Your corporate identity, you now work for this company, or your frequent flyer bonus. And you can imagine loyalty cards going online. You can imagine you trading on behalf of a business, or you're trading with a business and you want to know it's legit. So all of these things is where this is going, and it's going to be huge and complicated.
And I know a lot of people, I was just listening to also after your talk, where they were saying that this is quite unique as well, isn't it?
It is. We haven't seen anyone else who's doing exactly what we're doing, so we think it's a great way to go about this. And obviously, as we evolve, we will be looking at growing the identity provider space so that there are multiple providers of identity, and then figuring out how do we make sure that they are actually legit, right? So all of this is based on trust, and there's a lot to be solved. But we've taken the first steps, and I'm pretty confident that we're on the right path.
So we have with us Mike Milner from Copper, who's head of sales, and he's here with us to talk a little bit more about Copper and what they're doing at the moment. Mike, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Kåre.
Mike, tell us a little bit more about Copper, and especially I wanted to hear a little bit more about Clearloop, and yeah, just tell us a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we've been going for about 4.5 years. We started off first and foremost as a custodian in this space. Now from there, whilst we solved for the custody problem, the next big problem we solved for in the market going back about 3 years was the inter-exchange custody piece. How can you know that assets can't be misappropriated in the context of an asset class that has no path for recourse and is entirely anonymous? So for us, it was a case of wrapping the exchanges in a secure environment that meant investors felt comfortable allocating to the hedge funds in this space. And that's really brought more capital into the market. But the next big problem we've been solving for, and this is with Clearloop, as you mentioned, is the counterparty risk and the capital efficiency component in this space. So what you can do now is, rather than have to pre-fund the venues that operate in little to no regulatory framework, you can keep the assets actually segregated in a UK custodian and use that capital to trade across the venues in a way that doesn't inhibit the strategy but protects from a counterparty risk perspective against the venues.
Excellent, brilliant. And being here at the Paris Blockchain Week, what do you hope to sort of get out of it?
For us, at this point, there's new participants coming into the space more and more, so we're always keen to shake hands and meet all the new faces, but also we have a significant number of our clients that are here, so it's a great opportunity to meet people and say thank you for being the clients that they are.
You've just been talking about regulation of digital assets and also how to protect stakeholders. I'm wondering if you could give me a summary, or give us a summary of the key takeaways of your talk.
Yes, what I talked about was the new regulation which is coming along, which is exactly designed to protect stakeholders. And it's designed to protect people who are trading in digital assets. So that's people who are selling them and buying them, trading on platforms that we all know, like Coinbase or whatever. But somebody needs to produce those digital assets in the first place for them to exist and to be traded. And they're going to produce those digital assets on Concordium, perhaps. And of course we're building the platform in Concordium to make that happen and make that happen well. One of the things the regulators need to be sure about is where these digital assets come from. Who's trading them, who's produced them, what they involve and everything like that. And Concordium is the only chain that has identity built into it, which allows you to track everything all the way through.
Yeah, and can you tell me a little bit more about the ID layer?
Yeah, so if you can imagine a piece of art, a piece of NFT art, which we know, the artist himself, we don't really know who produced it or if it was the artist today, perhaps we do. We don't know who bought it, we don't know how much for, we don't know where it was traded, we don't know where it came from. And that's a thing that's a problem in the real art world today. Nobody really knows, is it an original or not, and all of this stuff. If that piece of art was created on Concordium, then the identity of the artist would be known, the identity of everybody handling the piece of art would be known, and perhaps if they wanted it to be, the prices would be known as well. So if I'm buying that piece of art today, I can be perfectly sure who produced it, who's had it all the way through, and that it's mine in the end and it's an original. And that's something that the NFT art place can give based on Concordium.
Yeah. And in a way, this is very good with the new regulatory rules that are coming into effect. So one could say a little bit ahead of itself.
Yep, the rules are there now. They're going to take a bit of time to come into play. They're hugely complex. There are 100,000 pages they could be, and they're only just at 500 now.
Yeah,
so
I noticed you said that.
Yeah, so there's a long way to go. But anyway, that's the way things are going to be. And it's going to be about 18 months before they're in place.
Yes.
But hopefully, what these do is the people trading in these digital assets can get much more certainty.
Yeah.
And the regulator's there to make sure that consumers are protected and that bad actors are removed from the equation, so nobody's cheating anybody and all of that. And I think for crypto to achieve mainstream usage, then people need to be very confident that they're not being cheated and they're getting a good deal and everything like that.
Exactly, and I like one of the words you also used, which was trust. There's a lot of trust involved in this, and that's what we have. Yeah.
Yeah, trust is something that we all need in our day-to-day lives. We need to be able to trust each other. We need to be able to trust the businesses that we deal with it. Yes. And underlying all of that, we have a regulatory framework that sort of encourages trust. In other words, if you misuse trust, you go to prison or something. That's fine. And Concordium, I think many of our key attributes in Concordium are based around trust. Yes. So we have identity built in. You can trust in the team, you can trust in the code, you can trust in the finality, you can trust in all of these things that are going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, trust is key.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. We'll leave it there. That was brilliant. Thank
No
you.
problem. Thank you.
Austin, thank you so much for talking with us today. So you are from Solana Labs, you're head of marketing at Solana Labs.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about some exciting developments, the latest news of Solana.
Yeah, so we just wrapped up a whole Hacker House program around the world where we're visiting lots of different cities and meeting developers and really giving them a place to work and get onboarded to the Solana network. We just finished a big event in Miami and announced a whole series of new Hacker Houses that are coming all around the world, including a bunch in Europe. But really, like the last, I would say, 6 months has really seen explosive growth of NFTs on Solana. There's now about 1.6 million Solana wallets that hold Solana NFTs, and there's over 8 million Solana NFTs that have been minted,
Wow.
which is all since really August of last year.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
it's been really, really quick growth. Like the chain really started out as being a really strong DeFi focused place because it's a fast execution environment. It's meant to be really high throughput, really low cost. Turns out that's also great for NFTs.
Yeah, I was going to say, any challenges with that, or has it been sort of like a smooth ride and into that area?
So one of the interesting things is like this network is still pretty young, right? It launched in March of 2020. It's still technically called mainnet beta. So there's definitely been some growing pains along the way. A lot of the work that's being done now is to basically increase performance and throughput and be able to meet the demand of 1 billion users using the network.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what's the future? What's the future looking like?
What's the future? So I think really on a broad spectrum, you're seeing networks like Solana becoming like an execution environment for whatever people want to do with them. So you see a lot of developers from Web 2 coming over and starting to get really interested in building on blockchain. They're largely looking at chains that have high performance, have low fees, and have really high throughput, and most importantly, are places they feel can scale to meet that future demand. If you're talking to a Web 2 company that's got 2 or 3 billion users, they want to know that they're not going to run into issues in the next year or two when they start moving their entire account system and all of their users over to a blockchain. And Solana's been a really strong candidate in that market, and we've had a lot of success bringing prominent Web 2 companies into the Web 3 ecosystem.
Maria, you're running the ESG vertical for Concordium, and you've just been up on stage talking about ESG and also digital assets. And I was wondering, as an industry, what is the biggest thing that we can do going forward?
I think there are two things. So the first thing for us as an industry is greening and cleaning our own house. So for that, it's about collaborating on finding a methodology for calculating our footprint as a proof of stake society. I think that's one of the most important points. And then the other thing is understanding how do we put digital assets on chain? What are the standards that we're going to use, and how do we enforce them across the different chains?
Yeah, and then I'm also thinking about when we look at ESG and going forward, like, do we have any user cases that we can relate to?
Yeah, so I think with everything happening in the reporting space, we're going to see a lot of transparency, and from that comes accountability. And when accountability comes in, you as a company have to account for all your activities throughout your supply chain.
So Maria, if we're looking at a sort of everyday or corporate user case, what could we relate to?
I think a case like IKEA is a perfect way to explain it. So IKEA is obviously a furniture manufacturer, and what they do is that they cut down trees, and at that point you, by using Concordium, can actually create a source of origin or a guarantee of origin as to where that tree came from. You could then follow it throughout the supply chain with all the different parties putting it together. And in that you can also start calculating the emissions that specific furniture sets off. So once it's at the point of sale, you can actually start seeing how much would IKEA as a company need to offset. If you overestimate that, you end up with a huge financial liability. If you underestimate that, you're placed on a bit of scrutiny for not doing good enough. So that's one of the use cases, looking at the supply chain and the emission that happens. But it actually goes beyond that. So IKEA is obviously very concerned about the climate, and they're doing quite a lot in this space. So they have these buyback stores, which functions in a way that they buy back the furnitures if you don't want them anymore and put them up for sale again. Here, what IKEA would need at the point of sale is a proof of authenticity, that it's actually their product. So once they do bring it back, that they can actually prove that this is an IKEA product. And if that product has any maintenance while under ownership, they can actually track that as well. So I think that really puts together, the practice of circular economy for a company like IKEA.
Yeah, and I really like that with your talk as well, because you sort of ended it with talking about, the biggest things being accountability and authenticity as well, and going forward, that's really the biggest thing that we can do.
Yeah, so I think in this industry we have a really potent technology that can help with a lot of things in this space: traceability, transparency, creating trust between actors. And I think in that, the things we choose to put on chain, it's really important for us not to take one problematic paradigm and then reciprocate it in another context with another technology. So that's my main goal, is just creating that authenticity and having that as the key part of what we do.
Brilliant. And I really like that in your talk as well, because you talked about authenticity and transparency going forward. And I'm also thinking with Concordium, where you're working with the ESG. Can you tell me in your own words where the idea layer also becomes a factor in that?
Yes, so I think for ESG, it's about creating transparency and traceability. And in that, we're opening up our supply chain. All the people that we're collaborating with, potential customers, suppliers, we're sort of opening it up and making it transparent. And in that, you would need an ID layer. I would need to know specifically who produced my product, who had ownership of them at a given time. And actually also, they would need to know who I am as a company, that I'm actually licensed to sell this stuff. And I think that's the pure value of Concordium and the ID layer in the ESG space, because you need to be able to track that the person is actually verifiable and it's a trustworthy supplier, either if that's data or it's a product. You need to be able to assess that it's the right person that you're navigating with.
I'm here with Hadrien from Nomadic Labs. Now, Hadrien, tell me a little bit about Nomadic Labs and what you do.
Sure. Nomadic Labs is a French company based in Paris. We are 70 people working on the Tezos protocol, which is a public blockchain. We have 3 big departments. I would say the first one is a research and development department with 45 PhDs in computing science, working on the Tezos blockchain, on the different updates, improvements that we can do on this blockchain infrastructure. We have, just like any other companies, a support department with human resources, finance, communication, and as well a very special department, which is adoption and technical support department, which is a department covering France and Benelux. Helping any companies, it can be a startup, it can be a public institution, it can be a big corporate, willing to build a decentralized application on Tezos. So this is this team helping for free. So we bring a kind of consulting service on Tezos, and we are really the experts in our area regarding the Tezos technology and all its tooling. And we bring as well technical support for free to help those guys building on top of Tezos.
And what is the biggest project that you're working on right now?
So recently we had the luck to know a lot of traction on Tezos, especially because we've been working with more and more established companies in the French and Benelux area. For instance, last year we launched together with Ubisoft, the gaming company, NFT marketplace on Tezos. We also are working with Vitality, which is an esport team together since several months. We've been working as well with a company called FineLife, which launched a fantasy game with NFT cards for the rugby industry in France. And we see more and more brands, for instance Guerlain, which is about to launch an NFT collection next week on the 20th of April on Tezos for a very, very interesting project. The funds that will be raised by selling those NFTs will be used to reflourish a field of 28 hectares in France, 1 hour from Paris. It will be a project managed by Hanna Dam-Stokholm, who is a famous environmental person. And this NFT will be minted on Tezos, so we are really excited by this project.
Lorna, you've been speaking to many people here at the Paris Blockchain Week, and I know that there's a lot of trends that are happening right now. How does Concordium tackle all these trends?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. This is kind of why we made Concordium. So I also see that we come from a world where there was a given, say, Bitcoin maximalistic sort which came into everything in this space, and now it's much more about how can you have the institutional investors into the space, what are the demand also for businesses, and this is why we made Concordium. So this is right into our narrative with the idea at our protocol level that you don't transact on our protocol anonymous, you have the ID that comes with an encrypted stamp, but the accountability for everything you're doing. So this fits right in, and I also think the background we have on our team also coming from a large corporate side where you know also what is needed in order to build certain applications into your entire application suite. So the blockchain element would be small things which need to fit into everything else you're doing, just on the accounting side, on the auditing side, on the way your customers are interacting.
Yeah, and I'm thinking also with your background coming very much from the corporate side, this is a beautiful fit for this world because that's so much needed, especially with the new regulations that are coming in.
We like to say that we are disrupting disruptors, so we love the disruptive part of it, the decentralization, the transparency, which is kind of a total new thing also for large corporations and the whole banking sector to fit into. I like it because it's very demanding, and that means that you really have to think about what are you doing, how are you communicating, having probably just one set of communication, why should it be different internally and externally, why shouldn't it just be one single which is totally transparent. So I think that it is giving a lot also to the world who haven't been thinking in this way before, but then the other element where the incumbent can really contribute, and that is kind of how does it fit with regulation, how does it fit with our clients' demands, and how does it fit also with fitting into the flow of a large business life.
We have with us now Matthew Nelson, the CEO of Arivu. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you very much, Claire. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now, we've just been listening to a lot of talks about ESG, and I'm thinking also about the new regulatory compliance rules that are coming into action. How does Arivu feature in this?
Well, we founded Arivu to underpin brand trust, and we're giving companies the power to prove the accuracy and provenance of their ESG claims. And we're doing that really by transforming the way that companies own, prove, and share their ESG data.
And when when you were up there on the panel and talking, were there any things that particularly stuck out to you as things that we need to focus on more?
Absolutely, and I think it's the opportunity that our sector and that Web3 affords us, and so to really seize the opportunity to utilize decentralized models and tokenized incentivization models to collaborate on solving the problems that are in front of us, and really being able to set an example as an industry sector to other corporates around the world.
Yeah, and one thing I'm sometimes curious about is, especially with Arivu, what was your motivation for starting this?
We saw we came into this space with a tool set, a very powerful tool set, and we wanted to deploy that in use cases that really made a difference. And we felt that the biggest impact that we could have is to focus on ESG as our primary use case. And so we're really pleased to be deploying those capabilities and working with Concordium and bringing that capability to life to help companies in this enormous challenge that we have in this transition toward net zero.
Yes, yeah, because it is an enormous challenge, and we have so much that's changing every single day. So I'm thinking, when you look at this in the future, if we just take 1 year or 2 years ahead, what could you see happening, or what do you think needs to happen?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the things that are really the most important are the quantification of carbon footprints, for example, and because we need to be reducing our carbon emissions. And so we need to start with accurate quantification and evidence and proving the creation of carbon and basically proving our carbon footprint through an entire life cycle.
So it is a big issue going forward, and I'm thinking, obviously we've started to tackle this, but what do you see that needs to happen in the next couple of years?
Well, there's a lot of change in regulation and in methodologies around how to quantify carbon footprints and how to report on ESG overall. And so meeting those challenges in the next couple of years, there really needs to be a focus on the quantification of your carbon footprint in order to start to shrink that and to address offsetting any residual exposures. And of course, that's just the part of the E of the ESG theme. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in data collection and provenance and proving and evidence in ESG reporting overall.
Great. And one last question, Matthew. Where did the name Arivu come from?
Great question. Arivu is the Tamil word for the methodical acquisition of knowledge. And it's very fitting for the tool sets that we're bringing to life, the blockchains that we're working on, and taking our customers on a journey toward net zero.
Love that. Thank you very much, Matthew. We have with us Hanna Dam-Stokholm, who's the founder of WeToo, which is a non-profit organization to eradicate child abuse. Now, 1 in 5 children are abused in Europe. How does blockchain actually help with this? Hanna, big question, I know. Welcome.
Thank you, Claire, for having me.
So Hanna, can you tell me, how does blockchain actually help with a non-profit organization such as WeToo?
I think it helps tremendously. As with any business, it helps with the efficiency and the transparency, but it also helps with the control of usage of funds for the donors. As you probably know, many donors, they are worried, will my funds reach the end users in need? And in our case, it's children in need. Blockchain can help with that. People can maintain control over it till the very last minute, where we actually report that we are ready to send the funds to the end users or to the project which will benefit the end users.
And how did it come about actually with Concordium, using Concordium's blockchain for this?
Well, I think Concordium blockchain is one of the only ID layered secured businesses in the industry, and that's hugely important in philanthropy, that we have everything pre-identified.
Yes, transparent and also trustworthy.
Absolutely.
Yes, all right. Well, thank you very much, Hanna. That was great. Jesper, you are CEO of Northstake, which is one of the leading partners, staking partners, I should say, working with blockchain and the next generation of blockchain. And I wanted to ask you, if we talk about Maria's talk that she's just done for Concordium on ESG and tokenization, and we're talking about proof of work and the difference versus proof of stake and ESG, can you tell us a little bit more in your own words where you see Northstake coming in there?
Sure. I mean, as I mentioned, we spoke earlier, the ESG is a very big question, and obviously in the blockchain community, we believe that blockchain as a technology will be able to solve a lot of those issues and challenges. Now, obviously there are different generations of blockchains, and the early blockchains, or the first real blockchain, Bitcoin, was pioneered as a proof of work consensus mechanism. And although there's some debate about how much, what the footprint, the energy footprint from Bitcoin mining is, needless to say, it burns a lot of energy. And I know that a lot of Bitcoin miners are trying to source energy in a sustainable way in order to mine Bitcoin. But if you look at the up and coming, or the majority of the blockchain networks out there now, many of those are variations, but proof of stake blockchains. And that has to do with the fact that proof of stake consensus mechanisms is very energy efficient compared to proof of work. Now, if you want to solve ESG issues, challenges with blockchain, obviously you have to use a blockchain that is both environmental but also socially responsible. And as such, I don't see any other blockchain project out there, network out there, that would be able to do that unless it was a proof of stake network, of course.
So I'm here with David from Rolling Cryptos, something entirely different. David, welcome.
Thank you very much, pleasure to be here.
David, I know you are all about the community, and you in particular have Cryptoberfest. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Rolling Cryptos, and we have two flagship events. One is the Cryptoberfest. Yeah. We host it everywhere in the world actually. We have side events in Lisbon, Istanbul, and the Cryptoberfest, the name says it's similar to the Oktoberfest. So we combine traditional with the digital, and it's focused on the Web3 technology.
Love it. And how did you get this idea to do this?
I actually always loved the idea of the Oktoberfest. During my studies, I made a charity event in St. Andrews, and they hosted the Oktoberfest, and there I realized only international people how much potential this concept actually is, and so
that's how it came. And the community, I can see that, just looking around, everybody, it very much is a huge community.
Yeah, we are all about community. So we are, I think we call us the Web3 powerhouse, and we are the strongest community builder right now in the crypto space.
Excellent. Thanks, David. Really great.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to coming to the party.
Yeah, you have the super VIP ticket.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this was a really special edition of Crypto Channel Direct, live from the Paris Blockchain Week. We hope that you've enjoyed this show. We've had many exciting guests and lots of new developments in this space. Join us next week, where I'll be bringing you the news you need to know with Crypto Channel Direct, powered by Concordium. I'm Kåre. See you next time.